Alright, PoE 2 players, let's go ahead and go over all the legendaries or the unique armors in the game. There are quite a bit. We may actually have to do this into like two parts. There's 137 unique armors in the game. So let's go ahead and start off with the first one, which is based around thorns. So it's called Bramblejack. You get some life, some stun threshold, and it's 250% of melee physical damage taken reflected to attacker. I think this is actually really crazy. Now, it does only count the physical damage, but it is based off of percent, so it's like always going to be good. I want to say that this has some pretty high potential. I'm not sure how like viable Thorns is in PoE. I've never like made a build around it. Usually like the thing is kind of like memes like what, like 3 to 5 damage or something like that. This item has to sit in PoE 1, but who knows? Maybe this will be something kind of cool. I definitely would be on the lookout for this. Probably a low level item. I mean, I'm assuming you could just have everything one-shot itself. Kind of cool, but I want to see what it does late game too. Next up we have Black Braid, which is a fur plate. So we have some strength and some stun threshold, and then armor applies to elemental damage. Now this doesn't have a crazy amount of armor, but this could be something to consider if you want to run a bunch of other things that give you high armor. Making it so whenever you take elemental damage, I'm not sure how it applies in terms of the percent, but that could be pretty cool. Next up we have the Edrin's Tusk. So this is a body armor that gives us some extra increased armor, and then we have a chance to inflict bleed, reducing slowing potency of debuffs on you, and you get some physical thorns damage. I think it is like kind of cool. For level 11, that's like actually a pretty solid item. Next up, we have the Immortan Raider Plate. So we gain some increased armor, we get fire lightning res, and then moving while bleeding doesn't cause you to take extra damage. So that's kind of like the unique effect on it. It's like a whatever. But like low level, a lot of these things will be actually pretty good. Then we have Titan Rot. So we get a massive amount of armor. We get increased strength as a percent, but we get reduced dex and int. There's a downside of no life regen, but maybe if you want to become an attribute stacker, this is going to be maybe your best in slot, especially if you're doing like specifically strength attribute stacking. Then we have Wandering Reliquary Steel Plate, which gives us some armor, some mana, some strength, and 50% of physical damage prevented is recouped as life. Prevented meaning that whatever damage that you wouldn't have taken. That could be kind of interesting. What level is this? 27. And then recoup is life recovery. Now in PoE 2, it's actually different. It gives it to you over half of the amount. I believe it used to be 4 seconds in PoE 1, but in PoE 2 it's over 8 seconds, so it does take longer. There are ways to reduce the recoup amount, like as in like it will reduce the time. So you can cut this, I believe, in at least half. You may be able to cut it out even more. So basically, you will regenerate that amount of life even faster. And then we have Kingsguard. That's another PoE 1 item. So we get some max life, mana, elemental resistances, reduced endurance charge duration, but you get to recover 5% of life for each endurance charge consumed. Okay, so whenever you would like build these endurance charges up, let's see what endurance charges do in PoE 2. So something will grant you a charge, so you have to like get it somehow. But anyways, so charges last by 20 seconds by default. There are 3 types of charges. We have endurance, frenzy, and power. Okay, well, at least in PoE 1 it would give you extra like damage reduction. In PoE 2 I'm not exactly sure what it is because it doesn't state right here. Usually like some of these would be let's go look it up actually. Okay, and by doing some research, it's weird that like there was no like PoE 2 wiki like endurance charge at the moment. Keep in mind it's like a newer game. So as far as some people were saying is that how it works is something will let you spend the charge, because in PoE 1 what an endurance charge would do is it would give you elemental damage reduction and physical damage reduction, but it just gives you that charge so you can then spend it. So there are skills which consume, so you would get some like bonus based off of it. So that is going to be something a little bit different. So whenever you consume them, yeah, you get to recover some HP. Then we have Greed's Embrace, so we get reduced movement speed, which is bad. By the way, all armors pretty much give you minus 5% movement speed. That doesn't actually show up in the game. It's kind of like you just got to know it. That's why if you see speedrunners, they don't equip armor for a while. Then we have increased armor, increased rarity. So this is basically just used for increased rarity. Okay. Then we have some extra fire res, but that movement speed, no bueno. All right. Next up, we have the Brass Dome. This is going to be really big on armor. Yeah, 400% armor. So if you really want armor, go for this. And then you have -5 maximum all elemental resistances. But remember, you can also get that, well, it technically is another chest armor, but there are ways to convert the damage that you take into something else. There is, you take no extra damage from critical hits. So you're basically immune to crits. And then on top of that, you get a crazy amount of armor. So if you want to become an armor stacker, that is your go-to. We also have Helm's Heart. It's going to give you 1,000 to your maximum. That is huge. Just basically like the legacy one, right? But it used to give you like, I think, 500 life. Then it used to give you, I think, fire damage. But nonetheless, yeah, that is pretty cool. But there's a downside. You have no spirit, which means that you cannot play this pretty much with a summoner build. Not that you really need this anyways on a summoner build, but that's what it does. And then we have the Bristle Boar, which gives you some HP. You gain 3 rage when hit by an enemy, and you gain 10 rage when you critically hit by an enemy. So what rage does is it gives you extra damage. Any hit that isn't damage over time is hit damage. Oh, we need rage. So it grants you 1% more attack damage per 1 rage gain, up to a maximum of 30. Then you start draining rage if you haven't taken damage or gained it. So only 1 hit can gain rage. So whenever you take damage, let's see, it's got kind of bad stats on it for like the evasion rating. It still is like maybe usable at earlier stages just to get some extra damage, but like again, I wouldn't say people would really be interested in it, other than like very niche builds at the end game. I just don't see people. There's other probably sources of gaining rage versus just using a chess piece that has pretty bad stats. We have Foxshade, which gives you increased movement speed, evasion rating while on full life. That's really cool. So this is a really good PoE 1 item. I usually like using this while leveling because it gives you a bunch of movement speed. And then you also get a massive 100% increased evasion rating while on full life. So as long as you're playing like a dexterity based build that has high evasion, that could be something to consider. It's like a leveling item. Then we have Ashra, another leveling item probably. So we have cannot be ignited, some fire res, minus 10 physical damage. Yeah, great leveling item, but yeah, nothing to get too excited about. Then we have Brisk Wrap. That's another cool leveling item. We have, no movement speed on this one. So we have life and mana recovery rate on the flasks, and then we have some dex, cold res, whatever. It's honestly a skip. Then Dust Bloom, we have some increased evasion. Then we have cold res, and we have fragile regrowth, which I'm not actually sure what it is. We have life regen per fragile regrowth, and 10% increased mana regen per fragile regrowth. We lose all fragile regrowth when hit. Gain 1 fragile regrowth every second. This is like its own mechanic for this special armor? Okay, so basically, as long as you don't take damage, you're going to be getting extra life regen, and since you can stack, 10? So your maximum is 10, so you basically get like 5% of life regen per second, and you get... it's a pretty big amount of mana regen, like 100% mana regen. Cool, but it's like kind of like a mid-leveling item. And it also gives you some resistance. The evasion rating's okay. And then we get the Rat Cage. So 300 maximum life. Okay, we get some evasion rating, reduced attribute requirement. 100% of fire damage from hit is taken as physical damage. So that could be good or bad. You don't really want to be taking that. Usually, like, you don't want that, but it does give you 300% maximum life. Next up, we have the Quartz Mold. So we have some life, some chaos reg, and then life regen per second, and you cannot be poisoned with it. So that's like a special thing. Maybe some of these items could be used for very specific bosses or something, since PoE 2 is a little bit harder per game. Then we have Queen's Force, which is going to give us some evasion ratings, some cold fire lightning res. We have 1% increased movement speed per 500 evasion rating. And then other modifiers to movement speed do not apply. So if you do want to go fast and you really want to be stacking crazy amounts of evasion rating, I feel like in general, a lot of these armors or some of these items have been reintroduced into PoE 2, because this is a PoE 1 item. It's a lot harder to scale if you look at like the way that the tree is designed and all like the itemization is a lot more reduced. But nonetheless, we have a pretty cool item for it's for a very specific build. But Ghost Wraith is going to be giving us 100 maximum energy shield. We get extra chaos res, and 50% of maximum life is converted to energy shield. So it is used for a very specific build. It's like a lightsaber build. That's what you'd want to actually use it for. How good is it PoE 2? I have no idea. But in PoE 1, it actually was an item that people were using. Then Bitter Bloom with Feathered Robe gives us some energy shield, some maximum mana, increased energy shield recharge rate, and energy shield recharge starts when you use a mana flask. Okay, that could be interesting, so you can pop it maybe at lower level items, but there has some potential with some sort of builds that can maybe expend an energy shield or do something with it. Maybe you can want it. And like there's ones where like energy shield recharge can't be interrupted if it started recently or off a condition. Maybe that this would be utilized for that, but the base amount is pretty low anyways. Starting off with the one on the left over here, the Black Doubts Hexer's Robe. What does it do? It gives us some extra energy shield, some int, damage over time bypasses your energy shield while not on full life. You sacrifice 10% of your mana per second to recover that much life. Okay. Then we have Necromantle Bone Riment, which gives us some life, mana, and minions gain 20 to 30% of their maximum life as extra maximum energy shield, and then minions revive 50% faster. So maybe if you're running a minion build, again, it's maybe like a lower level thing. And then we have Cloak Flame. We have Fire Resistance, reduce Ignite duration on you, 40% of physical damage taken as fire. Then we get 25 to 35 Fire Thorns damage. I'm guessing that's just like a lower level build thing. I mean, it gives you a massive amount of fire res. But physical taken as another like source of damage. I think it was called like Lightning Coil in PoE 1. It was actually really good, but that actually has like way better stats overall. Will people use this for the damage conversion? Maybe. And then we have Prayers of the Rain Keth, or Keith. So we have some energy shield. We get increased energy shield, some int, 30% slower start of energy shield recharge, and energy shield recharge is not interrupted by damage if it began recently. Hey, that was the thing I was just talking about, but you can't combo these, unfortunately, because they're both chest armors. And then we have the Tetsup Buckle's Desire, which gives us some energy shield, strength, chaos res, and life recharges. What's life? Life will start recharging at the rate of 12.5 per second after a base delay of 4 seconds. Oh, okay, so it's basically giving you the ability to recharge HP. Huh. This could be very interesting. I wonder if some people will actually run this for bosses. I mean, it's got energy shield on it, but you want like your life to recharge, and it doesn't give you like, energy shield is kind of not what you'd be looking for as far as like life. But maybe you can apply your life as energy shield recharge. So there's some sort of like combos with it. Next up, we have the Covenant Altar Robe. So we have increased energy shield, some life, and spell damage leeches life, and spells gain a base life cost equal to 50% of their base mana cost. Is that going to be worth it? Well, I don't know. You do get some leech, I guess. If you just do enough damage and it's fine. And then red Coat of Red, which is a chainmail that gives us increased armor and evasion. It's a hybrid. Oh, it's like a really low level. But like for no armor requirements of like 100 life, that's kind of nice. And then 25% chance to be inflicted with bleeding on hit. So there is like a downside with it. And then we have the Borrowed Dweller Rogue Armor. So armor and evasion, low level item. Get some, is that negative 20 to 10% fire res? You get some increased armor and evasion, cold res, and 50% chance to avoid death from hits. That's a very, very interesting thing. Now, it's a 50-50 chance, but if you're stuck on a boss, you just keep on getting that lucky RNG 50-50. That's a very weird item. I wonder if someone's going to make something cool with this. I like the idea and concept of it because in theory, you could be, immortal as long as you keep on rolling that thing every single time. I think that's hilarious. Probably not something that people will want to run, but again, against bosses, if you are struggling, you never know, right? And then we have Iron Grasp, which is the armor that gives us some increased armor evasion. Then we have Stun Threshold. Then we have Iron Grip and Iron Will. So this is kind of interesting. So increases to project attack damage per 2 strength. And then strength provides no bonus to life. And then we have Iron Will, which gives us increased spell damage per 2 strength. And strength provides no bonus to life. So there is a big cost to it. But it's just like this, probably like low level, yeah. I'm just going to say the stats just don't equal up to. I don't know if people will want to run this. I mean, for some builds, like it's really hard to get these keystones, but like it is something that you do have to give up. Then we have Prize Embrace, which gives us increased armor and evasion. We have 50 to spirit, some regen, and reduced mana cost of skills. Kind of a cool like mid-leveling item. And Belly of the Beast, I actually like this thing a lot. So we have some armor evasion, so hybrid, kind of like a mid-level item, and then it's got a bunch of maximum life. Oh no, I think this thing used to give you resistance, didn't it? Unfortunately, it does not. But it does give you life recovery from flasks as instant. I like this item. It's a kind of a cool item, just like solid stats. But to be honest, you could probably get 100 life on something else. And nowadays, this thing probably is outclassed. And then we have Dariani's Prototype. Oh, this is actually really cool. So we have Armor ES, and then we have increased armor evasion. We have some life. And then armor applies to lightning damage taken from hits. And then enemies in your presence also have lightning resistance equal to yours, and lightning resistance does not affect lightning damage taken. So that's really cool because the middle part where it says enemies in your presence have lightning resistance equal to yours. This is a really good item. This is like the first item that I'm like, okay, you can make a build around this. I have done it before. It's very expensive to get some of the stuff needed because it required stuff from Calandra, or like you'll have to get from that like mechanic. So how it works is you try to get as much negative lightning resistance as possible, and then the enemies have the same amount. And then, well, if you get double like your resistance as negative, it goes even further. As far as I'm aware of, I don't know if it works the same as PoE 2, but in PoE 1, you can get as much negative res as you want. So, yeah, go to the moon with this for damage. It is pretty cool. There is that downside, though, of lightning resistance doesn't apply to lightning damage taken. Now, there is one source of lightning degen in the game with a monster mod. I don't know if it exists, but it was like on Arch Nemesis, and if you run into that monster and you do play Prototype, you will never kill it. It will just instantly melt you because you'd have negative several hundred lightning res if you build it right. So there is kind of a give and take with this. I hope that that mod is removed. If that mod is removed, then like go for it. But like if that mod can exist on a rare monster, then I think a lot of people won't be interested in even testing this thing out, because on PoE 2, as far as more of, once the map is like dead, as in like you rip on the map, that's it. There's no go in another portal, avoid that one monster. But the reason why is because you don't, I don't know if it was worded like damage taken on a hit before, but I just know that there was one thing, it was like some sort of like mana siphon or something like that, but it existed on an Arch Nemesis mod, which is like the PoE, like think of it like some sort of elite monster that can have like a mod that just deletes you out of existence if you run that thing. Next up we have Enfolding Dawn, which gives you increased armor and energy shield. You get also 100 spirit, and then you get elemental resistances, and it says intelligence provides no inherent bonus to maximum mana. I guess there is kind of a downside, but you do get a decent amount of spirit, and maybe you can get an extra summon or extra aura with it, but the stats are so low. It's, again, what I've noticed in general is a lot of these items are just like low leveling items. This is like the first one that like, okay, you can make a build around it. Cool, awesome. I want to see more of this kind of stuff, versus like most of the time, because the unique items are such low drop rate, like you get them in the end game relatively commonly, but like at this point, you're only using it for like a second or third character, but that's what I've noticed so far. Anyways, I assume it gives you a bunch, well, dang, 67 armor. What the heck did it do this thing? This thing used to be good. Used to give you, okay, it gives you strength, int, and cold res. It used to give you just a good amount of armor too, but it says freeze as though dealing cold damage equal to 10% of your maximum mana when hit. I'm not sure if people will really be interested in running it, but it does look like I have a cool skin. Maybe we'll use it as a skin transfer. Husk of Dreams, so you get increased armor and energy shield, negative fire res, some chaos res, increased flash charges used, 50% chance for flash you use to not consume charge. So that's like a special ability with it. If you want to use some build with it, maybe you can think about Pathfinder, as it does consume your charges when you use your abilities to throw like the flasks, right? So that's where I could maybe see some play. We have Vol's Protector, so we have increased armor and energy shield. We have reduced maximum mana. We have a chance to gain a power charge on a crit. If you have 100% chance to crit in your build, you can build up the power charges and then expend them in some sort of a way. And then we have Couture of the Crimson, which is going to be a body armor that gives you increased armor and ES. We have reduced maximum life and reduced bleeding duration on you. Life Leech can overflow maximum life. So overflow will give you more HP that can recover up to twice that maximum. So can you have double the HP? Well, you do lose 25% maximum life, so you can get 25% more HP. But for the cost of, getting one-shotted, well, I mean, it depends. Are you able to leech before the boss fight really begins? Because if you have 20% reduced life, the boss like smacks you and you would have survived. Then yeah, I just don't see people using this, to be honest. But maybe there's always people that make crazy builds, But for the most part, off like face value, I don't see the use for that one in every single build. But yeah, you don't even get like flat life on it because even though it says like you can get that overflow, I mean you're missing out on so many stats, resistances, and you just get the fact that it doesn't give you any flat life is kind of unfortunate. But anyways, Apron of the Hermit Garb, so we have increased evasion and energy shield, dex, reduced bleeding duration on you, and bleeding if you inflict is aggravated. Aggravated, what does this do? Bleeding that has been aggravated always treats the target as moving, dealing 100% extra damage. Oh, that is pretty big. I mean, so you get double bleed. Wow, that could be pretty dang good on that. Even though it's like probably like a leveling item. I mean, if anything's giving you double damage, I want to say you could probably use this forever. I mean, granted, yeah, you're basically sacrificing your chest slot, which is kind of big, but there's another part of it. It says once a bleeding debuff has been aggravated, it will remain aggravated until its duration expires. Aggravating one bleeding debuff does not affect other instances of bleeding on the target or bleeding applied afterwards. Okay, so I mean, like I said, it just always applies. It's not even like a chance. So I don't know. I think that this has potential. Another like cool item. Obviously, see there's a big sacrifice with it, though. Gluiform Waxed Jacket. So we have Evasion, Dexterity, Reduced Light Radius. You have Smoke Cloud around you while you are stationary. So what Smoke Cloud does is enemies are blinded. Now, blinded just makes them like lose accuracy. It used to be like, I think like 50% like chance for their attacks to miss back in PoE 1 before they got nerfed. It got like Omega nerf for like, I don't know, I want to say like kind of no reason. I think it was because like, it was a Sand Stance when everyone was running that for like 10% reservation to get just permanently blind all enemies. It was a good thing. Unfortunately, that didn't last forever. But I don't know if I'd want to run this. I'd have to check out what blind does in PoE 2. If it's the same as PoE 1, it's like whatever. If it's like the old PoE 1 where it's like 50% chance for them to miss, then oh man, that's pretty good. But next up we have another thing called the Syrian Inheritance. So we get increased Evasion and Energy Shield, we get Lightning Res, and then 50% start of Energy Shield recharge, and the effect of chill on you is reversed. So that means if you were to apply chill on you, like let's say you would be slowed down, because that's kind of what chill does, instead you get increased. Kind of a cool idea. And then we have, but it's like, what's the stats on? Maybe lower leveling one, and you could maybe inflict chill on yourself. Like these are more for complex builds, but for leveling, it's probably a skip. Unless you really, I don't know, there's maybe some boss that like slows you down by like a lot. But next up we have Dancing Mirage, we have Evasion and Energy Shield, we have Lightning Res, 20% less damage taken if you have not been hit recently, and 100% increased evasion rating if you have been hit recently. Okay, I mean, that is kind of nice. Now, surprisingly, like that 20% less damage taken if you haven't been hit recently, for bosses, this could be pretty big. Recently in Path of Exile refers to the last 4 seconds, so like if you're doing a boss and like you don't get hit by it very often, I mean, 20% damage reduction is pretty good. Because a lot of times like the bosses will have very high chances to hit you compared to like the average monster, and the evasion rating isn't very high in general, but it could be slightly valuable for some builds. Again, if you're stuck on a boss or something and it doesn't hit you very often, when it hits you hard and you get it. Anyways, Red Flare Conduit. So we have maximum mana, we have lightning resistance, and 20% chance to gain a power charge on hit, and then we lose all power charges when reaching maximum power charge, and it shocks you when you reach maximum power charge. So obviously this is for more complex builds, but I don't know if someone will really want to be playing it considering the stats are kind of mid. But you can maybe like have some build where like when you use power charges you get X, Y, and Z. For this one, you lose all of them when you reach the maximum, which by default should be 3. And then shocking yourself is usually probably pretty bad, but again, there are complex builds where you're unaffected by shock, or when shocked you get, you know, a bonus. So we have Wings of Kalen. So this item gives you increased rarity. You get some dexterity and gain 1 rage on melee hit, and every rage also grants increased stun threshold. I actually think this thing could be pretty good. I'm not sure what the maximum rage is. I believe it's actually 30. So, I mean, 30% more damage for your Helm slot. This genuinely is best in slot for, I want to say, almost every single leveling build, unless you do spell, because I believe is it attack damage? Yeah, it is attack damage specifically, not just all damage. So, again, a more damage, as far as I'm aware of, that is considered a multiplier in your damage, so it's like 30x. In Diablo terms, 30x damage, which is pretty big. In PoE, we very rarely see these, and the rest of the stats on it, I mean, like, I guess getting dex is okay, and increased rarity, this is kind of like a premium stat. You don't really see magic find on very many items in the game, and again, for leveling, I think it's great. It's like the same thing. Oh, this one, every rage also grants 1% increased armor. Wait, this one's way better. Wait, you can get, I mean, if it's, yeah, I think this one's better. I mean, getting stun sucks in PoE, just like every other thing, but yeah, this is like the same thing, right? Yeah, 1 rage on melee hit. Okay, cool. So it's kind of like this, the same thing. I like this. Again, this would be a fantastic leveling item, and it could scale pretty good because you're losing out on like 30x damage by swapping. I mean, it's really hard to replace that item. Eventually, you're probably going to want something with resistances, HP, and stuff like that. But as Mike P, another PoE 1 item, so we get increased armor, we get maximum life, and then we have unwavering stance. So that's like that special thing. So you cannot dodge roll, but your stun threshold is doubled. That's a pretty big thing to give up in PoE 2. But what level does it require? It's like low leveling is like okay, but like again, losing out on dodge roll is pretty big in PoE 2. I don't know if that's worth it, but maybe there's something else that you know can be utilized with it. Black Sun Crest, where it says like you can't dodge roll, so it's like you won't lose on dodge roll here because you're gonna lose out on something else. But like if you're really worried about getting stun threshold. That basically the amount of damage that you take is related to how much HP that you lose when you get stunned. But I don't know. I think people just rather be immune to stun rather than taking this like unwavering stance. Anyways, Black Sun Crest. We have increased armor, reduced light radius. Light radius, by the way, sorry I didn't explain it before. It's like how much your character can kind of see around you. It's a Diablo 1 stat that like genuinely does not need to exist. There is one item in PoE 1 I think that gives you some sort of damage based on light radius, but I've never seen anyone play it. But it does give you increased attributes. It's strength, dex, and int, and it is all of them. This item can definitely see some play if you want to be an attribute stacker, so cool item. And then we have, Thrill Steel is in here. We gain Onslaught. Onslaught in PoE 2 gives you increased skill speed and increased movement speed. This is actually a really good thing. This is going back to like the other thing I was talking about, like fantastic leveling item. And actually like best in slot for like a long time for a lot of builds. And then we have Dyed Belt, which is a helm that gives us increased armor, increased warcry speed, and corpses in your presence explode when you warcry, dealing 10% of life as physical damage. And there's a way to make it so you can like infinitely use warcries and they don't have an animation. I think this is actually a really cool item because it's a 100% chance for the corpse. You just keep on activating this. Set up like I don't know if you can set up like a way to like kind of auto cast it, but that'd be pretty cool. And then we have Corona of the Red Sun, which gives us some accuracy, some life, some increased life radius, and when you leech life from a hit, allies in your presence also leech the same amount of life. Okay, it's gonna be kind of weird to like also make a minion build with it. I don't know if that has a use for it, but maybe someone will figure it out. Because sometimes you can give minions, like, it'll be a special item that says, your minions gain your helmet, or your minions gain your shield, whether that's in a passive, a jewel, or a special thing. But anyways, Innsmouth, which is a hood that gives us reduced mana, and then we get cold res and chaos res, and 100% increased mana regeneration rate. So for leveling, maybe this could be utilized. I could see some people wanting this. I was going to run, like, Mind Over Matter. Kind of a cool transmog, too, for the helmet. I like that. And then we have Gold Rim, which is really cool. We gives us plus 35 to all elemental resistances. That's the only thing that you'd want it for, and this is pretty much the best in slot while leveling for sure for a lot of builds. There's a lot of great helmets too. We have Radiant Leaf, Radiant Grief, which gives us some evasion rating, some fire res, some increased light radius, and enemies in your presence are ignited as though dealt 100 base fighter. So what this is probably used for is like if an enemy is ignited, when you hit them, they do X, Y, and Z. So kind of a unique thing for certain builds, but stats, kind of a lower level item. Then we have Elvor, which is a hood, which gives us some evasion rating, dexterity, and charms gain charges per second. So charms are like these things that you can put up, like where your belt slots are. The more, like, I guess, powerful your belt is as you progress, you're going to get up to 3 charm slots, and then prevent you from getting free shock ignited. I don't know if there is spell suppression, because I believe that's what this thing used to actually give you, which is like reducing the spell damage that you would take. Alpha's Howl is an armored cap, which gives us evasion rating, 100 spirit, so for minion builds maybe. And then we have to cold res, and presence radius is doubled. Oh, this is a fantastic item for anyone that is a minion player. Look out for this. It is a level 65 item, but presence is how close you are to your minions. I don't know if it is going to show a picture or something. Yeah, so it's a 6 meter radius, so it being doubled, that is pretty cool. And I'm wondering if you can get any like plus, like, let's say you get 5 to meteor radius, and then if it doubles that, this could be really good because some minions, well, they're going to be walking away from you to do their damage. So I like this item, really cool. And then we have Crown of the Thorns, which gives you maximum energy shield. That's a massive amount for 0 requirements, but you do lose 5 life when you use a skill. And then it says some 3 to 5 physical thorns damage. And then you have Pain Attunement also. And Pain Attunement is less critical damage when on full life, but 30% more critical damage on low life. But I would say this item is actually incredibly, incredibly good. Now, you can run like a life on hit, so then that way you can kind of counteract this thing a little bit. But this is actually, I mean, getting 150 maximum energy shield while you are leveling, even at the lowest roll 100, is incredibly, incredibly good. So, again, a lot of these leveling items. Wicked, this is the Devouring Diadem. So we get increased energy shield, some int, some chaos res, and every 3 seconds consume a corpse to recover 20% life. I wonder if you can generate corpses, or if like any of your minions die, if they can generate a corpse with maybe a unique. This could, I mean, 20% of your life is massive. Every 3 seconds could be a really cool bossing item, potentially, if you can generate corpses. And then we have the Visage of Aya, the Beaded Circlet. So we have energy shield, increased rarity, increased critical hit chance, and you also get Eldritch Battery. Eldritch Battery converts all of your energy shield to mana, so kind of cool. And then we have Forbidden Gaze, which is a tiara. that gives us energy shield, maximum cold res, and then we have cold res, and then we have reduced light radius. Next up, we have Mask of the Stitch Demon. So it gives us increased energy shield, some chaos res, and you cannot have energy shield, but you regenerate life per second per maximum energy shield. And then we have at Series Decidian Gold Circlet. So some mana, increased rarity, and then damage taken bypasses energy shield, which I would say normally you wouldn't want, right? And then gain 25 to 30% of maximum life as extra maximum energy shield. Okay. And then we have the Greymake Brimmed Helm, which gives us some strength, dex, and int, and -1 to attributes per level. Oof. But it is like the low level requirement. So again, there's so many items that are just made for leveling. Then we have, wow, this thing has crazy amounts of stats. So Arian's Cobble has some armor, evasion, energy shield, accuracy, maximum life, mana, increased rarity, increased critical hit chance, and then to a bunch of stats and resistances. Whatever. It's like, again, another like low level item that probably would be thrown out in the garbage. Increased armor and evasion over here with Iron Ride. We have some mana, some lightning resistance, and you have no accuracy penalty and at distance, which accuracy is your chance to actually hit the monsters. So if you're further away from them, then, well, you will always have, you're not going to be able to miss. I would say most people probably won't care about this item because you're going to get accuracy in some other ways. So here we have the Smiling Knight. We have increased armor and evasion. You have accuracy rating. We have increased critical hit chance. Aggravate bleeding targets on targets you critically hit with attack. So if you're doing some sort of bleed build, you don't have to run that chest piece anymore. Maybe you can swap with the helmet and the stats on it. Since you do get crit chance, the other thing I believe had like almost no good stats on it. Whereas this, at least you get 25% crit chance. I mean, I guess if it rolls perfect, then you maybe corrupt it and get a better implicit on it. Maybe. Because sacrificing the chest piece is pretty big, considering you could give up the helmet slot a little bit easier. And then we have the Vile Knight. So it's going to give us some increased armor evasion. We have accuracy, regen per second, and then deal 4% increased damage with hits to rare or unique enemies for each second they've ever been in your presence. So you get up to 200% increased damage. So if you're like struggling against like a boss fight, hey, maybe you can run this, and eventually, I don't know if like that number resets. Like if that number doesn't reset, I would say this is like a pretty cool item. I like the idea of it. So then we have Crown of the Victor, which gives us increased rarity of items. We gain some life per enemy killed, and some mana, and 1 to all skills. Another great, fantastic leveling item. Hold on, I'm going to see how much there is here because we're already like 30 minutes into this one. And I want to see how many more helmets there are. Let's finish off the helmets in this part because there's like over 100 items. I'm going to have to make a part 2 of this. And then we have the Bronze Beard. So we have reduced movement speed. We have increased armor and ES. We have some life, reduced effective shock, chill, and ignite. That's actually kind of nice if you really want to be ailment immune, especially since it's only level 10 for requirement. Then we have Crown of the Pale King. We have increased armor, and then some life, increased rarity, and Thorns damage is triggered by all hits. Okay, so maybe for Thorns build. Then we have Veil of the Night, giving us some life, attributes reduced, light radius, and you have no elemental resistances. I'm not sure if people would want that, but maybe for some like obscure builds. They have Coronathium, Heavy Crowns, which gives us increased rarity, int, increased light radius, and then experience gain. It's a small amount, but like it's hard to get XP gain in general, and they're used by like power levelers. Like there are certain things where that's what you would actually equip them for, like a power level service. It was used in what's called a 5-way in Path of Exile 1. Anyways, the Hollow Mask gives us some life, additional physical damage reduction, and then -10 to all elemental resistances. I actually was running this, not too bad as long as you can get those resistances up. That physical damage reduction, especially on a build that doesn't have armor, is actually quite nice because it's just flat amount. Whereas getting that elemental resistances, it's a lot easier for a lot of builds. So it actually it's a solid like leveling item. And then we have Leercast, which gives us life and mana, and allies in your presence deal 50% increased damage, but we do less damage. So again, great for minion builds. And then we have the Aztec Sight, which is a mask that gives us increased critical hit chance, some dex and intelligence, and critical hits poison the enemies. So for poison builds, maybe that is your go-to. But remember, in PoE 2, you can only apply 1 instance of poison unless you have something that gives you more poison stacks. So I'm not sure how valuable it is to hit poison every single time because most of the skills will apply poison anyways that you're using. Anyways, the Vertex Tribal Mask. So we increase evasion and energy shield. We have crit chance, and then we have some chaos resistance, and then equipment and skill gems have 50% reduced attribute requirements. I'd rather just run an item that gives us those in the first place, and then we can run something that gives us more than just 17 chaos res, because it's kind of a mid item. And then next up we have Tree Fingers Revenant Mitts, so we have increased armor, we have add physical damage to attacks, and we get Giant's Blood. Giant's Blood lets us wield two-handed axes, maces, and swords in one hand, triple attribute requirements of weapons. There's a big cost with it, but you run two-handers. That's awesome. I love that. That's such a cool like a thing. Now you can get that on the tree, but it's going to be hard for certain classes. Like if I was going to play like a witch to run two-handers, that's really cool. I like that. You can wield two of them in one hand. It's like a dual wield. I want to just get this item just to mess around with it, because there could be some, like, let's say a two-hander that gives us really good stats. This could be a really good item. Yeah, it sacrifices your glove slot, but that's fine. I would say usually gloves are usually used for like attack speed and stuff, kind of a stat stick as well. I like this item. I think this one has good potential. Then we have 3 dragons. So it gives us increased evasion and energy shield, and 10 to 20 elemental resistances, and then fire damage from hits contributes to shock chance instead of ignite chance and magnitude, and then cold damage contributes to ignite instead of chill. Lightning damage contributes to freeze buildup instead of shock. So if you're trying to like convert your stuff to like a very specific thing, this item is existed in PoE 1 as well. Cool stuff indeed. But man, there are going to be a lot more. I'm going to cover it in part 2. Like I guess part 2 is going to be gloves, boots, and shields. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed part 1 of the legendary or unique armors. I just call it legendaries because, again, Diablo reference here. But I'm going to cover the rest very soon. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Drop a like, and I'll be dropping another one very soon. Catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.